pass along. According to a report, Philip Rivers is retiring from the NFL. Philip Rivers made 8 Pro Bowls, but of course, never able to win the big one, the Super Bowl. Nick, I'll start with you. Is Philip Rivers a future Hall of Famer?
All right, so congrats, Philip Rivers. Wonderful career, but this is going to be the conversation. And if Philip Rivers is a Hall of Famer, then evidently all it means in the modern era to be a Hall of Famer is just be, somewhere around a top 10 quarterback and you'll make the Hall of Fame. Because Philip Rivers, if we put him in, Matt Ryan must be in. Matt Ryan's going to finish with the same numbers, if not better. He has an MVP. He's been to a Super Bowl. Matt Stafford then says, what about me? My numbers look amazing. If you're going to be a Hall of Fame quarterback, I need you to at least check one of these boxes. Were you a great playoff performer, or did you have a period of time where you were either the best quarterback in football or at least on the short list of the best or second best quarterback in football? Rivers checks neither. And I know his counting stats are spectacular, but he's got 5 career playoff victories. Oh, Nick, you can't hold that against him. I kind of can. Listen, I watched those Charger teams with LaDainian bleeping Tomlinson, an all-time great player throughout his entire prime. Philip Rivers, you have LaDainian next to you, and you make 1 conference championship game. And so do we live in a world where, as you know, in 2015, 9 starting quarterbacks were future Hall of Famers? Brady, Breeze, Peyton, Eli, Ben, Russ, Rivers. I'm leaving a couple out that would also make the list. I got to look real quick. But Rodgers, pardon me, that now we're at 8. So I don't think he's a Hall of Famer. I don't think he struck fear in the hearts of the opposition the way quarterbacks of his era did. And I don't think he's a Hall of Famer, Brandon. I don't.
Wow. Nick, you're so wrong here. I mean, you got to think about it. This could potentially be, he probably played in the greatest quarterback era ever. So when you talk about that Chargers team, I was on the other end of the field. I was on the opposite end. I was over there seeing him and Jay Cutler yell and scream at each other on Monday Night Football. I was in those battles. I saw him throw to Vincent Jackson. I saw him throw to Floyd. I saw him throw to Antonio Gates. He was phenomenal. But then when you think about this and this criteria that you put in place, you got to say, well, he also had to go against Tom Brady. He also had to go against Peyton Manning. He also had to go against Ben Roethlisberger in one of the greatest Pittsburgh Steelers defense. He also had to go against the Baltimore Ravens and Ray Lewis, some of the greatest defenses. The AFC back then was loaded, not only with the defensive guys, but also some of the greatest quarterbacks ever. So it pains me when we have these discussions around the Hall of Fame because the criteria is way too high. And I say it's way too high is because there's been over 150,000 NFL players come through this league. Over 150,000. I don't know the exact number. The NFL's been around for over 100 years. So when you see a guy with everything I just said, and then he finishes top 10 in touchdowns, in yards, he has to be considered. Now, is he first ballot? I don't think so. Does he have to wait? Probably so. But we need to change our approach, Brian, around this Hall of Fame thing, because it's extremely hard to not only make it to the NFL, but to stay in the NFL and play at a high level for 15 plus years. The injury rate here is 100%.
Yeah, Brandon, I think you're right. But I do think that the criteria should be high. We're talking about the best of the best. You're talking about the Hall of Fame. We're talking about better than everyone else. And I think, Nick brings up a really good point. And you have to win playoff games to be considered for the Hall of Fame. And Brandon, you laid it out kind of perfectly. You're talking about Breeze, you're talking about Manning, you're talking about Brady. Yeah, you have to beat those guys because those are Hall of Fame quality type of players. And Philip Rivers just didn't do that consistently enough. But yeah, he put up numbers. We understand that. But some of those numbers are just hollow numbers. You're running up numbers against teams that weren't very good. You have to win in the playoffs. You have to win championships, or at least be in the conversation for championships. And to Nick's point, I don't know that when you talk about the postseason play, that Philip Rivers struck any fear as far as going far in the postseason, opposed to when you compare it to Breeze, Manning, Rivers, Eli. You can talk about Big Ben as well.
Yeah.
I mean, those are the guys that you're worried about when you start the season, and not so much Phillip Rivers. But when you think about all the talent that he had on that football team, they should have been good for a very long time. They just didn't achieve to the level that I think they should have achieved.
Go ahead, Brandon. Go ahead, Brandon. Then I'll jump in. Go ahead, Brandon.
So why don't we put teams in the Hall of Fame? Why don't we put the steel curtain? Why don't we put units in the Hall of Fame? This is not a team award. This is an individual award. They fired his coach after they went 13-3, right? So, like, I just think we need to expand this conversation.
So here's Brandon. I think I'm gonna let me jump in real quick because I think I'm gonna say something that'll resonate with you. I don't want the Hall of Fame to start looking like the league MVP award. The league MVP award is turned into best quarterback. And if we simply, like, if Phillip Rivers, who for the majority of his career was not at any point one of the 4 or 5 best active quarterbacks, then all of a sudden you only let 5 guys in a year. Andre Johnson, a guy who I know you know, Brandon, have massive respect for, I have massive respect for, is going to have to fight tooth and nail to get into the Hall of Fame. There is a point in time where he was the best receiver in the league. Brandon Marshall is going to have to fight tooth and nail to get in the Hall of Fame. You were first team All-Pro. And the fact of the matter is, we can't lower the standard for the quarterback because we talk about them so much. 5 guys get in a year. And if you were never close to league MVP, you never had a magical playoff run. The reason you weren't going on these runs is because great Hall of Fame quarterbacks were beating you. To me, once you open that door, Matt Ryan has to get in then. And Matt Stafford is a couple playoff victories away from getting in then.
Well, let me push you back on your first point, Andre Johnson. So why does Andre Johnson have to fight tooth and nail to get in? How many quarterbacks did he have? Did he control the roster?
I agree.
You are closer to it than I am, right? Because you were there, you covered the Houston Texans. But why does he have to fight tooth and nail? This dude had so many quarterbacks. He was in an organization that was rebuilding and reloading year after year after year. But Andre Johnson is one of the most dominant wide receivers that league has ever seen.
I agree.
He's 6'5", 225 pounds, and runs like he's Chad Ochocinco.
But Andre Johnson was one of the best receivers in his era. He was that's what he was, one of the best in his time.
Yes.
Phillip Rivers wasn't ever considered one of the best in his time, the best in his era.
Yes. And we could have mentioned it here, Brian. Brian, we could have mentioned it here. Donovan. If Phillip Rivers gets in, Donovan McNabb's got to be saying, the hell's going on here? Like Donovan McNabb has a better postseason resume, has more of those accomplishments, had to go through a gauntlet as well, and nobody says he's a Hall of Famer. I think Rivers probably gets in, but I don't think he should, Jenna.
Well, let's end like this. Congratulations, Phillip Rivers.
Yes, I was going to say congratulations.
Also, congrats.
Great season for the 8-time Pro Bowl quarterback, Phillip Rivers, retiring from the NFL. Take a turn, talk some Patrick Mahomes. If he suits up Sunday, could he break out the behind-the-back pass? We'll preview this weekend's action next. Brian Westbrook, thank you as always.